Namaste. We are a group of Auroville, the name called Spiritual Multiversity Group. Luca, France, myself. We are organizing this event as a part of SHRI Aurobindo's 158th birth anniversary. As per the charter of Auroville, Auroville is a site of material and spiritual researches for a living embodiment of an actual human unity. And so, keeping this line of Auroville charter in our mind and heart, we are aiming to invite spiritual teachers and scholars from different spiritual paths to give talks and workshops which could be helpful in our spiritual journey. And in the Indian yogic system as well, we have mantra, yantra and tantra have been mentioned as a tool by which Nara can become a Narayana. Nara means human being and Narayana means divine. And so today we have a guest, Sri SAMPADANANDA MISHRA ji, who will talk about Mantra Yoga and SHRI Aurobindo. I would request Luca to please welcome him with applause. SAMPADANANDA MISHRA ji is a professor at Rashtraman School of Public Leadership at Rishihood University. He is a Sanskrit scholar from Odisha. Through the Vande Mataram Library Trust, he plans to generate verified, authentic English translations of almost all important scriptures available in Sanskrit. This pioneering project would also lay the foundation stone of original Sanskrit works that would enhance the appreciation and cultivation of the Vedic knowledge. SAMPADANANDA ji regularly conducts workshops, training programs, orientation courses and talks for students and teachers on Sanskrit, mantra, yoga and Bhagavad Gita. He writes articles in English, Sanskrit and Odia. He composes verses and songs, and he has edited and authored many books. SAMPADANANDA ji was awarded the Maharshi Bhadrayan Vyas Award for Sanskrit in 2012 by Pratibha Patil, the then President of India, and SAMPADANANDA ji is also specialized in Sanskrit grammar. So now, without taking now much time, I will request SAMPADANANDA ji to start with the Mantra Yoga and SHRI Aurobindo. Thank you, SAMPADANANDA.
So let's begin with a few seconds of silence. Namaskar. So the topic today is Mantra Yoga and SHRI Aurobindo. So in any practice of yoga, spirituality, or in our spiritual journey, mantra plays a very important role. As a tool, as an instrument, as a means for the attainment of a state which helps in attaining many other higher realms or achieving in life the real purpose, the higher goals of life. Let's concentrate on the word mantra itself. In Sanskrit, every word is conscious of its own history. It's self-explanatory. It explains why it stands for a particular ideal, particular object. So the word mantra itself can explain you why it stands for whatever is the meaning of the mantra. Every word in Sanskrit is derived from a root sound, and that root sound is also connected with many fundamental experiences. So in a sense, like when we come to Sri Auroville to learn about the mantric nature of Sanskrit language, or the mantra as a language, or the language of the mantra, so we will find that mantra or Sanskrit as a mantric language is not just helping in elevating the human consciousness, but it also helps the sadhaka, means the seeker, to find out or to arrive at the fundamental experiences of the humanity, which is an important exercise to find out what are the fundamental experiences. And most of the meanings of the words derived from the root sounds are based on those fundamental experiences. That by itself is a completely different topic. We will focus on what is the word, the etymology of the word mantra. The word mantra comes from the root sound man. Every root sound has several meanings. Not one meaning, layers of meanings. Man means every activity that mind does, or any activity connected with mind, is the root sense of the root sound man. Man means to concentrate, man means to think, man means to consider. So that's where you have the word mata. The word mata comes from man, means an opinion, or someone who thinks about something. What one thinks about something is mata. And man also means the mind, from which you get the word manas, because it does all these kinds of activities. Now there is the other component, tra, which can be explained differently. Tra is a suffix in Sanskrit, which is added in the sense of a tool. Like the eyes are called netra. Netra means, it comes from the root sound ni, means to lead. So eyes are means by which we are led. You have patra, means vessels. Pa means to drink, so patra. You have vastra, the clothes are called vastra. Vas means to cover. So the means by which we cover ourselves is vastra. So mantra means a means, a tool, an instrument by which one is capable of contemplation. The mind can be concentrated, brought into a state of focus. One-pointed concentration is possible by mantra. So, because the mind can be brought through mantra into a state of focus. So what mantra does is makes the mind free from all its chaos. So that's why traditionally it is said mananat trayate iti mantra. It means like it protects, it saves, it makes the one who contemplates free from all vagaries, all chaos. The nature of mind in the ordinary state of consciousness is chaotic. Mind is affected by many doshas, many faults. It's never concentrated. It's in a chaotic state. It doesn't see clearly things because it always has a distorted version of everything. Because it is covered by many components. There is a veil in front of the mind. There are many thick layers, you can say. So the pure divine mind, which can see clearly, think clearly, is something which can be achieved through mantra. When we come to Sri Aurobindo, so how he explains the word mantra is something which no one has explained, especially what he says in his book, The Future Poetry, what he speaks about the mantra in the Secret of the Veda, in the Hymns to the Mystic Fire. So when it comes to poetry, mantric poetry, so he says that there are three intensities. The intensity of rhythm, the intensity of rhythm, the intensity of the thought content, the intensity of the soul's power, the soul's vision. So when these three intensities they meet, so that poetry becomes mantric poetry. Who can do that? Who can produce that kind of poetry? The one who has raised himself or herself from ordinary to a higher level of consciousness. So the one who was living in a higher level is living or is capable of, by the power of tapas, by the power of one's own sincere effort, or by the power of a self-discipline. So one who has raised himself to a higher level of consciousness has developed the inner power of vision. So then he can see things clearly, directly, see the truth directly, has developed the inner power of audition, can hear the voice of the truth directly. So that person is called a rishi, or in the feminine form it is a rishika. So you had both rishis and rishikas who live in a higher plane of consciousness, have the power to see the truth directly, have the power to hear the voice of the truth directly. So pratyaksha drashta, that means a direct seer, a pratyaksha shrota, or a direct hearer of the truth. So they see the truth, a certain aspect of the truth when they contemplate in a meditative, in a contemplative state. A truth, it appears in the consciousness of the rishi. So it starts reverberating. And when it descends and starts reverberating in the consciousness, so it takes a shape, it takes a form, gets arranged by itself in the form of sounds. And the rishi has the power to see the pattern. And that arrangement is very harmonious and harmoniously rhythmic. And that pattern is called the mantra. So what he sees is the mantra. That's why the Rishi says, Yadruk eva tadrushi tadruk bravimi or tadruk brute. So the way I see, I present. So there is no distortion in the mantra. Why mantras are powerful? Because they are the sound symbol of, or their representation of, a solid realization of the truths, where there is no distortion, there is no loss of content. So in mantra one finds, like when a realization takes place, when a deeper truth is seen, the way it is seen, the way it is heard, is never distorted in the mantra. And it is expressed through minimum use of words, through minimum expenditure of energy, and without loss of content. So mantra contains within itself the essence of the truth realized. So by coming in contact with the mantra, one can have the same realization, what it contains. One can have the same realization. One can become one with that realization. That's the power of mantra. In the tradition, the rishis were of various types. The prominent ones were those who could see the truths and through whom the mantras descend. The second type of rishis were who learn that from the rishis and reproduce it or teach it to others. So the mantras were used for raising the consciousness, for coming in contact with that experience, the higher truths, higher realms of consciousness. And because mantras are pure, the mantras are very potent rhythmic sounds, they have the power to transform. They have the power to transform. Transform what? Transform the entire nature, transform the consciousness, in the sense it will uplift the seeker from ordinary to the higher. And especially, it brings the mind into a state of silence. Because silence is the ultimate source of speech. Silence is the ultimate source of speech. So from silence it comes, and one can understand things better in a state of silence. That's what a pure music does. That it brings the entire consciousness into a state of silence. That's what a perfect piece of dance does. It brings the entire being into a state of silence. That's what is sculpture, an architecture, a beautiful painting. So anything in its purest form, without any distortion, is mantra. You listen to the whisper of the nature, you listen to the chirping of the bird, you listen to the pure sounds of the waves, the ripples of the flowing water. It's all mantra, because it brings the entire consciousness into a state of silence. And ultimately that silence speaks. So in the Indic tradition, the gurus usually do not speak much. Gurus tu maunam vyakhyanam, shishyastu chinna sanchaya. The guru doesn't speak anything, sits quietly, and the shishyas, the disciples, they get rid of all their doubts. because there is a silent communication. The transmission of the spiritual force, the spiritual wisdom, it takes place through silence. So what we speak, the grossmost speech, so there is much distortion at that level. So that is why so much of confusion, miscommunication, that we do not understand, we start misinterpreting others, misinterpreting ourselves. You know the Chinese whisper game. You start with something and then the last person will have something very, very different. So that's how the distortion happens. The mind keeps distorting things. So now, in the tradition, Indic tradition, you have this practice of mantra, the mantra yoga. There are two different ways of this practice. One is a mantra shastra sadhana, one is a mantra yoga sadhana. In the mantra shastra, what happens? Where one has to get initiated into the mantra, initiated by the guru, and follow letter by letter what the shastra says. Shastra means the text, without asking any question, without any doubt, without any confusion. It's a total dedication to the shastra. If the shastra says get up, you get up. Says sit, you sit, without asking any question. If the shastra says go and then stand in the sun, you have to go and stand in the sun. No question. But that is meant only for some special seekers who have that intense seeking to grow through the shastra under the guidance of a guru. But at the same time, you have the mantra yoga sadhana, which is a simpler form of practicing the mantra as a yoga. The whole purpose is to grow from within, to bring expansion into the consciousness, because that's another important function of mantra, is that it makes us free from the narrow state of consciousness and makes us expanded. So one starts living in the expanded consciousness. So in the mantra yoga, so one has to be clear about the purpose, that why one is doing the mantra, for what purpose. The mantra should never be used for any kind of selfish interest, vested interest. The sole purpose of practicing the mantra is inner journey, a spiritual journey by which one travels from the ordinary state to the higher state of consciousness, expanding oneself. So expansion of consciousness is the very aim of the yoga, the evolution of consciousness. So that being the purpose, that has to be kept in the mind, and with all sincerity, with all devotion, with intensity and purity in aspiration, if one does the mantra yoga sadhana, so the mantras help immensely in achieving that goal, that highest aim, which is the expansion of consciousness. Now when we are talking about the mantra yoga sadhana, we discussed a little bit about what is a mantra, what is the power of a mantra, how it transforms the consciousness, what is the content of the mantra. The content is absolutely the truth itself, a higher realization, and by coming in contact with the mantra, contemplating on it, meditating upon it, or reciting it, so one enters into the very consciousness of the mantra. So every word every mantra has its own Chaitanya. Chaitanya means the consciousness. So by practicing the mantra, one unites one's own consciousness with the consciousness of the mantra. The force behind the mantra, the truth behind the mantra. So that is why it is called the yoga, the union. The union of one's own consciousness with the Chaitanya of the mantra. By constant repetition. So one can also contemplate on it, but that concept comes a little later. At the initial phase, when the sadhaka, when the seeker is not absolutely ready, so he has to start with a gross form. You cannot take out just, concentrate on it, meditate on it. That doesn't become possible for many in the beginning stage. So, this is where the loud repetition of the mantra is prescribed by the tradition, that you can just recite it loudly. They are the ucharana. So it's called the mantra ucharana. Ucharana is usually translated as articulation, but it has a deeper meaning. Ucharana in Sanskrit, ut means up. Anywhere you find the word ut, it means up, like udaya. Surya udaya, the sun rise. Charana means move. So when you do the ucharana of any mantra, so it means rising above with the mantra. The soul rising above with the mantra, with the sound. Ucharana. It is the rise of the consciousness. That is what is meant by ucharana. With the articulation, the rise of consciousness. And when the mantra ucharana is done, this is the bhava that one has to carry. And the first stage is Vaikhari. Vaikhari means the loud recitation of it. Where if the ucharana is Shuddha, means pure, then it yields more result. The Shuddhata, the purity in the articulation is an important component in mantra practice. So where one has to understand each sound, its makeup, how it is built, how it has to be articulated. Okay. Even then, the tradition, the experience of many sadhaks say, even if your ucharana is not Shuddha, if the bhava is Shuddha, bhava is more important, then also one gets the right result. There is a beautiful verse in Sanskrit which says, Dhiro vadati Vishnave, Murkhu vadati Vishnaya. So it means, like the wise man who knows the language, so he said, Vishnave Namah. But Murkha, the one who is ignorant one, who doesn't know, who has not studied the language, he will say Vishnaya, like you say Shivaya Namah, Suryaya Namah, Ramaya Namah. So for him, Vishnu also Vishnaya. But Shivaya, Ramaya, Suryaya in Sanskrit becomes because the word ends with a. So any word ending with a, like Shiva, Surya, Rama becomes Ramaya, Suryaya, Balakaya. But the sound ending with U, like Vishnu, it will not be Vishna, it will be Vishnave. Guru will become Gurave. Prabhu will become Prabhave. Now here it says, Dhiro vadati Vishnave. The wise man who knows, he says Vishnave. Murkho vadati Vishnaya. The ignorant one will say Vishnu. He simply imitates the sound. Then the next line says that Ubhayustu samam phalam. But both of them can get the same result if the bhava is perfect. Why? Bhava grahi janardana. It means like a God doesn't look at the technicality of your sound, how technically you are perfect. He looks straight at the bhava in the heart. However technically one may be perfect, a musician, a singer, but if there is no bhava, he cannot, do much. It will not appeal. So in mantra yoga sadhana also, while doing the practice of the Vaikhari, though Shuddhata has to be maintained, yet Bhava has to be also pure. And if the Bhava and Ucharana both are perfect, so one has intensity in the result also. When one goes on practicing the mantra, the Vaikhari, there comes a stage, naturally, the sadhak enters into a higher stage called Upanshu. Upanshu stage is where the consciousness now doesn't feel like articulating it aloud, but it just, repeats it within. No one else can hear. Although there will be lip movements, the sound is repeated, but it's not audible. Like it is audible in the Vaikhari stage. Then by repeating, moving and doing the Upanshu, there comes another stage, natural stage, where it becomes Manasa. Manasa means it becomes mental. So where there is no repetition, it just happens. And the sadhak can see it happening. He is not making any effort of doing that. Now the mantra becomes a part of the whole consciousness. Now that union of the consciousness of the sadhak has happened, union with the Chaitanya of the mantra. So he becomes the mantra. Like I give this example of Hazrat Inayat Khan, who was a great musician. So when he moved from India to UK, he was a Sufi mystic. So at a certain point of time in his life, he stopped music. But when he was asked, why did you stop music? He said, because I became music. There's no need of doing music separately, I am the music. So this becoming is the highest stage. It is not, now the union means it's becoming, one becomes one with that. That is the ultimate gain. Brahmi Bhuta. Like the mother says, to know is good, to live is better, but to be, that is the best. So to become that. So in mantra yoga, now we say that mantra yoga, it's not specific only to the practice of mantra. Like a musician who is practicing his music and he becomes one with music. For him, music is mantra. So for an artist, whatever tool he has, when he manifests that perfection and becomes one with that, so that's mantra for him. A sculptor, an architect, a singer, a dancer, a nature lover becomes one with the nature. So the mantra manifests in different ways. It's not just the mantras that we see in the text, they are mantras. So mantra has a bigger scope. Anything in its purest form is the mantra. So that is the deeper understanding of mantra. And when we say that we must practice mantra yoga, So it is not just to get confined only to certain mantras, Om Namah Shivaya or Vishnave Namah or Gurave Namah or Om. But silence is also mantra. To practice silence, to bring silence into the being. Because ultimately, what is explained here, the highest form of speech is the paravak. It's called the paravak. And at that state, Nishabdam tat parabrahma. That is how the paravak is described. The highest form of speech is Nishabda, that soundless Brahma, where there is no movement, it is motionless, it is soundless, it is indivisible. And in order to understand anything in its purest form, so one has to move from the grossmost to the subtlemost. But for the sake of reaching to that level, the mantras, the music, or any outer form, any outer means is a great help. So we resort to that for our practice. And in mantra yoga sadhana, so what is given the highest significance is to contemplate on the essence of all sounds, the highest of all the mantras, the sound Om, which is Ekakshara Brahma. This is a single sound, single unit of sound, which itself is the Brahman, which itself is the source of all sounds, which is the source of everything, source of this creation, because the entire creation comes from that Ekakshara Brahma, Om. To contemplate on Om, to meditate upon it, to repeat it, to become one with it, to allow oneself to open one's own consciousness to the force of Om, so then it starts exercising its own force on the human consciousness or the consciousness of the sadhaka, of the seeker. So then the transformation takes place. So the highest mantra, therefore, in all tradition, whether you turn to the Vedic, Vedantic or the Tantric tradition, every tradition has Om as the highest sound for practice, for contemplating on it. And there are certain mantras which has become very popular, you can say. Not because many singers have made it popular, but the very consciousness of the mantra, the Chaitanya of the mantra is raised because of the intense practice by the sadhaks. So for example, you have the Gayatri mantra, you have the Mahamrityunjaya mantra, there are many, even Om. So for so many thousands of years, people have been repeating and doing the sadhana of this. So by which the very consciousness of, very force behind the mantra is raised, is brought to the surface level. So with a little bit of opening, one almost feels that force. So in mantra yoga sadhana, one can even start with some of these mantras which are available to us. Then another thing is, people ask this question, when we do any mantra practice, is it necessary to know the meaning, or the meaning will come automatically? We just contemplate or we just repeat the mantra. So, if one knows the meaning, it's always better. So then one can evoke the right force behind the mantra. But if one doesn't know the meaning also, one can go on practicing the sound, the mantra, with all sincerity, with all devotion. Then what happens is, the mantras being very highly rhythmic, potent sounds, they start affecting the entire nervous system. They prepare the mind for the realization of what lies behind the mantra. This question was also asked to Sri Auroville, like whether one should repeat the mantra knowing the meaning, or is it necessary to know the meaning, or it is not necessary to know the meaning. So Sri Auroville has said that it's a science by itself. So when one starts repeating these mantras, it starts activating the nervous system. It starts energizing the cells. It prepares the mind for its realization. So a state comes, a time comes, when the force behind the mantra, the meaning of the mantra gets revealed by itself. So that's where one can even contemplate on certain sounds, certain words, repeat it, and the force behind the meaning of that word, the meaning of that sound, whatever lies behind the sound, it comes automatically to the sadhana. It gets revealed to the sadhana. So it's a process by which one can know the meanings, and that's what Sri Aurobindo himself did, and he himself is an example of like how the language itself. Sri Aurobindo never made any effort for learning Sanskrit, learning Tamil, learning any Indian languages. It just came to him. So he concentrates, he contemplates, he follows that yogic process of meditating upon the words, and it starts revealing. Within few months, he had mastery over the language. He could enter into the spirit of the mantras of the Veda. There are so many people, so many scholars who have been spending their entire life studying the language. Still, they cannot bring out the spirit of the mantra. But by following this yogic process of contemplating, opening one's own consciousness to the mantra, so the word itself, the mantra itself is revealing itself. That's what the Veda says, that tanam vibrunute svam. It means like the speech itself opens its own body before the sadhaka. It reveals its own meaning to the seeker, to the rishi. So that's the state of realization. And that itself is the power of a mantra, that it can lead the sadhak to a state where the meaning, the force behind the word, behind the mantra gets revealed to the sadhak. He doesn't have to refer to any dictionary, any commentary, or read, or has to depend on any outer source for knowing the meaning. So at the initial phase, therefore, like we can read, we can understand the meaning from someone, but ultimately the highest understanding comes when the word itself reveals its own meaning to the sadhak. So this is what happens when a sadhak moves ahead with the mantra yoga sadhana. So this is a little bit of understanding about the mantra yoga. So if there are any questions, I will address to that. Yeah, that we will do, definitely. Yes. Okay, I'll take 1, 2, 3.
Can you speak to your experience of learning mantras? Do you have any personal experience with it?
Yes, my personal experience is I do it like a Shabda Sadhana. This I have been doing for last 15 years and so, where I pick up a key word of the Veda or Upanishad or in the Sanatana Dharma. So instead of or referring to any dictionary or anything. I take it as a sadhana. I contemplate on it. It's an object of meditation for me. So I repeat it like a mantra. Then a time comes, it opens up so many meanings of it, the inner meanings. And those inner meanings I've never found anywhere. So then I start preparing my own note, then apply my own, linguistic and the grammatical knowledge. Because sometimes when you present it, people ask question, how do you justify it? So it's not a question of justifying for myself, but for others I have to justify how grammatically it is correct. That's what Jagannath Vedalankarji did when many people started asking questions about Sri Aurobindo's interpretation. That's what Kapali Shastriji did. They were well versed in Sanskrit grammar. So whatever meaning Sri Aurobindo brought to, so that's why many traditional scholars, they don't agree with Sri Aurobindo. And they can never agree because they speak it from purely grammatical point of view. But Sri Aurobindo brings it from a very higher consciousness. So this is what happens. So many words, like if you go to my blog page, so I have shared notes about the first word that I had taken for my sadhana was Shraddha. So till then it was just the meaning as a mere faith or intense faith or pure faith. But Shraddha is now no faith to me. It has a very deeper meaning. Then when I read the book, The Mother, and how it helps understanding Sri Aurobindo. Many people say Sri Aurobindo is very, very difficult to understand. But this Shabda Sadhana, this understanding of the Sanskrit words, it helps me understanding Sri Aurobindo. When I contemplated on Shraddha, and the meaning the meaning which came to me, based on that, I could understand the first chapter of The Mother of Sri Aurobindo so clearly. So Shraddha is its state, to give you the explanation which came to me. Shraddha is clinging to whatever is true to one's inner aspiration. So when you go to Sri Aurobindo's room and come down, there is this mother's writing, cling to truth. That is Shraddha. So it cannot translate it as faith, as a single word, cling to truth. When Sri Aurobindo says in The Mother that when one part of your being is opening of itself to the truth, to the divine, the other part has a reserve, then know that the truth will not come to you. So there has to be harmonious coming together of each and every part of the being to collaborate with the central aspiration. That is Shraddha. So this is how it has helped me, and I continue with my Shabda Sadhana.
Before you were mentioning that the root man means everything that has to do with mind. And actually it's very interesting that Sri Aurobindo himself used to say that man is a mental being, no? So man itself. So regarding the mantra practice, you said there are 3 stages, but also 3 ways, no, of doing the mantra I've read. One is loud repetition, one is sort of moving the lips, and one is mental repetition. And that can be done like at certain stages, but also like for beginners. Can it be done like the mantra, the japa mantra, can it be done like in a mental way? And is it more effective, or is it more, I find it more difficult, like to keep the concentration if it remains not spoken loud, because the sound itself kind of aligns myself. So by repetition in the mind, I find it more difficult to keep the concentration throughout the session. So can you say something about that?
You see, it all depends upon, like it varies from person to person. See, for myself also, many people ask me what kind of meditation technique you use for yourself. Because I have never meditated so far. I can't meditate. That's not my way of doing that. But I carry that word in me, I see it. So it's a very different way. I feel the silence behind many things. I see the nature, I am in the nature, I look at the flowers, I look at the leaves, I look at the sky, I look at the stars, moon, sun. I hear the chirping of the birds. I like to sit in front of the ocean. So I feel the silence. Instead of having a particular time and meditating with my eyes closed or sitting in a particular position. So that's my way of doing it. So one has to find out for oneself what helps. There's no single way of doing the practice. Now what happens, like if you start, what I mentioned from from Vaikhari to Upanshu to Manasa. Manasa is not just repeating in the mind. So the mantra itself, there comes a stage where the mantra itself gets repeated, starts reverberating in the entire consciousness. It's not just the mind. And another important aspect of the mantra is that though one does a particular mantra, yet the real mantra is happening in the human body constantly. That's what the tantric say, ajapa japa. That one doesn't do the japa, but it's happening inside. Because this entire body is a shabda sharira, it's a sound body. All the sounds, the fundamental sounds, one finds in the Varnamala or in the alphabet of Sanskrit. They are constantly generated and getting repeated in the body. So to do the mantra yoga is to grow aware of the japa, the mantra which is there in one's own consciousness. So that's another way of growing more and more aware about oneself, seeing all the movements within oneself. But a simple mental repetition may not help. So sometimes people feel a burden, a headache, and unable to meditate upon it because they force the mind to do it. What Sri Aurobindo says, even Swami Vivekananda also said, that there are 4 ways of doing this. The first stage is observe. Observe what happens in the mind. So this is the preparation that one has to have, for taking up anything deeper. Observe, watch over, control, and master. These are the 4 stages. So observe, just like a witness, remain quiet, take some deep breaths, just observe what is happening without participating, like a witness. See things are going, coming, happening. Whatever is happening, just detach yourself and then see like a witness. Then at the next stage, you are watching over it, like what kind of things are the right things, what are not right. Then to control is not to allow anything which is wrong, which will affect. So you start controlling. Then when you have mastery, so that is the highest stage, that you become the master, so it is up to you whether to allow or not allow. So you can lead yourself to a thoughtless state, because you are not allowing any thought, good or bad. That is the nirvikalpa state. So you do not allow anything because you are a master. You can make yourself thoughtless or you can allow certain thoughts which are necessary. But everything starts with this observation, that you start growing more and more aware of this. So the same way, the tantric practitioner, they say that grow aware of the sounds which are generated within the body itself. Become aware of the different chakrasthanas, different marmasthanas, different sandhisthanas. So different locations in the body where the sounds are prominently heard or seen. So if anything is creating the pressure and you are not happy with it, ultimately whatever practice we do, it should create that joy and comfort and happiness. If that is not happening, so we have to find out the ways what helps. So some people do ask whether should I sit in a particular position or not. Because no particular position is going to give the realization. You can sit for the entire life in the position in which Buddha sat. You will never get nirvana by sitting in that position. So when SRI Aurobindo had all his major realizations while walking. He never followed a particular way of sitting or doing that. So one has to find for oneself what is conducive to your own svabhava and swadharma and follow that.
Earlier there were gurus who used to give a bija mantra that you have to perfect until you get the ultimate result. But now we don't have gurus. So if you do experiments with different bija mantras, they say it can work like every medicine is good, but the reactions may not be good. So how do we experiment without a guide? Without a guide, without a guru.
Yeah, this is where the challenge is more, because to find the Satguru, the real Guru, is a challenge by itself. That is why SRI Aurobindo says that find the Guru within yourself. So the Guru is there within, the Shastra is there within, the ultimate Shastra, the ultimate Guru is within ourselves. So by growing more and more conscious of ourselves, okay, initially there will be difficulties, there will be challenges, but ultimately this is the assurance which is given that we will find the Guru within. We will be able to listen to that subtlemost voice which comes from within. And as SRI Aurobindo says that that subtle voice, it keeps prompting, it keeps influencing, but though we hear it, we don't heed to it. We avoid it. But most of us, with a little bit of awareness if we have, we do hear that inner voice, guiding us, telling us what to do, what not to do. But most of the times, because of our engagement with the external, we don't heed to it. So this is where the challenge, that to be aware of that inner voice and then follow the dictate of it, however bigger it may be. Because most of the times we are scared of following the inner dictation with the fear that, oh, it's not going to give me any kind of pleasure or joy that usually people seek. So we are more engaged with we are happy with the sensual pleasures, where the senses are happy. I see something happy, I hear something happy, I taste something happy. But the inner taste is tasteless. So there is a risk in that. We have to detach and then start hearing our inner voice. And to find out, this is the challenge, greatest challenge. That is why the sadhana, the discipline has to be followed strictly to be with us and then to discover that Guru, that Shastra, that ultimate wisdom within ourselves.
Thank you very much for this beautiful overall view of the mantra as a science and so. Now, in reference to the SRI Aurobindo Yoga, to your knowledge, because SRI Aurobindo, as we know,
He has went through the whole culture, the whole spirituality of India, being educated abroad and come back. He went through the whole range and the whole realization, and tantric, Vedic, and so. Now the mantra, according to you, in his yoga, because there have been several mantras, we wrote them in Matrimandri, also on the board everywhere. Which one, according to you, was that one indicated for his own sadhana, and how to use it for Sri Aurobindo Mother sadhana for the realization of his Mother Sri Aurobindo Jnana? So, in this context, how, according to you, Sri Aurobindo has, because we have so many mantras, was meant also the Bija mantra that is related to the tantric and so and so. And Sri Aurobindo was more than tantric. Tantric mean the Bija, mean the Shivaism of the Kashmir, mean the Sri Vidya of the South India, whatever. But Sri Aurobindo has always used a particular freedom of the construction of the mantra, as far as being cool, understand, asking information. So basically my question is, which is, according to you historically, the Sri Aurobindo Mother mantra, and how to use it in Sri Aurobindo Mother sadhana?
So Sri Aurobindo has given us the mantra, Om Anandamayi Chaitanyamayi Satyamayi Para. If we want to take off as a practice. So that is one of the mantras that he has given. He also has given Gayatri mantra to us. Om Tatsa Viturvaram Rupam Jyoti Prasya Divam Yanna Satyena Divanit. That's another mantra. And the mother herself has given, like she used to do Om Namo Bhagavate. That's the mantra for the cellular transformation she used. And she also has mentioned about Om. She says Om is the signature of the Lord. Everything comes by the sanction of the Lord, the Supreme. And that sanction, that presence is there in everything and being. So she says, like, just chant Om, all will go well. In a simple way. So these are the mantras which, I, at a personal level, I use, following the way of Sri Aurobindo and the mother. Om Anandamayi Chaitanyamayi Satyamayi Parame. Because the ultimate goal of any yoga is to be united with the higher half. We are in the lower half, in the physical, vital and mental. That's the lower half, called aparartha. The lower half, which is limited. And the higher half is Sat, Chit and Ananda. The ultimate aim of any yoga is to manifest Satchidananda within ourselves. Unite the aparartha with parartha. And for this, Om Anandamayi, Chaitanyamayi and Satyamayi, Parame, the Absolute, who is of the nature of Sat, Chit and Ananda. So that needs to be invoked. So then the Satchidananda manifests in the aparartha. Or the qualities of Satchidananda, it starts manifesting within ourselves. So that's the intent of Anandamayi, Chaitanyamayi, Satyamayi, Parame. And it's again, it becomes more powerful because it's not descriptive. It's invocative in nature. So, He Anandamayi, He Chaitanyamayi, He Satyamayi, He Parame. It's all invocative. So that's what we received from Sri Aurobindo.
How come one of come out from the fear, and how mantra can help?
Yeah, the fear comes from the second entity. In a relative state of existence, the fear comes. So that is where the ultimate way of getting rid of any fear is to establish oneness and unity within us. So as long as we live in binaries and dualities, we cannot get rid of fear. So that is why the Gita says samatvam yoga uchyate. Have that equanimity, state of equanimity. Ekatvam anpasyata. Tapo mohoka soga ekatvam anpasyata. So once that unity of consciousness is achieved, there is no moha, no soga, no fear. So ekatva, to be in that state of oneness and sameness, ekatva and samatva, is the highest thing to be achieved. So fear means any duality or binary means dvandva means fear has to be there. So the mantra, by gathering our consciousness and then bringing it into a state of oneness, bringing it into a state of concentration, bringing into a state of silence, it establishes that unity. It establishes that oneness and sameness. That is how the mantra helps getting rid of the fear.
How does mantra helps for team building? What you recommend?
Okay. So how does mantra help in team building? That's where the highest message that we get from the Rig Veda itself when we contemplate on the last hymn of Rig Veda. So it is through the mantra we invoke the power of collaboration. So it prays that Samana mantra, may our mantra be same. Samana hridayaniva, may our hearts be same. May we speak the same words. Samaniva akuti, may our sankalpa, may our aspiration be same. So this is where we unite together. So when a group of aspiring souls, they come together to ascertain truths, that is the true Sat Sangha. Sangha means coming together to ascertain the truths, Sat. And this happens in the state of prayer. So if collectively, so that's why the collective prayer has more power in bringing unity, in achieving anything that we want to achieve at a collective level.
Next is.
One last question. As Sri Aurobindo explained by chance, it's a curiosity. Like Sri Aurobindo's mantra, Om Anandamai Chaitanyamai Satyamai, inverts the order of Satyamai, Chaitanyamai, Anandamai. So Sat Chit Ananda, if we follow the order, it should be starting with Satyamai, Chaitanyamai, Anandamai. So is there any explication of that?
See, when you go from the lower strata, so first comes Ananda, then Chit, and then Sat. So when you concentrate on the koshas, is the Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, Anandamaya. So that Ananda, why Ananda is in the beginning, there is also like another explanation, because that is the ultimate gain. Ultimately, so Sat, Chit and Ananda, in whichever order you put, it doesn't matter, because Ananda is not devoid of Sat and Chit. Chit is not devoid of Ananda and Sat. Sat is not devoid of Chit and Ananda. This unity prevails there. So the ordering doesn't matter, but if you want that ordering, when you go from the lower strata, Ananda, Chit and Sat. And then he adds the word Parame, the Absolute, who is of the nature of.
I have two questions. You had mentioned about the sounds in the body. The first question is, this is explained in the Hindu Shastras. Now, what I would like to know is this knowledge of the sounds in the body which is very important for Mother's work of transformation because it's the materialization of sounds. Is this a knowledge that is connected only with the Sanskrit language? In other words, if you don't know Sanskrit and you don't know the Shastras, is this experience of the sounds in the body something that is not necessarily connected only with Sanskrit?
Yeah, true. Because mantra actually has no language.
Yeah, that's it.
That's why music is mantra, nature is mantra, silence is mantra. When Kabir Das, Tulsi Das, Narsi Mehta, they are giving us, their words. Each word, each message of theirs is mantra. So it follows a different language.
This brings the second question.
Yeah.
There are mantras in the spiritual tradition of India that have a specific meaning, like Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Narayanaya, or to the mother, or to different gods, different forces. These are specific, or even Anandamay, Chaitanyamay, Satyamay. These have a meaning. But then there are mantras that do not have any specific meaning. They're either letters or the combination of letters, like bijas. What is the difference between the two?
Yes, see, nothing is devoid of meaning. So meaning is like it carries a force within itself. That force itself is the meaning. And when you say like mantra has no language, when you deal with a mantra, when you are repeating with a mantra, it doesn't create the sense of that you are using a particular language. It takes you beyond the language. When you read Savitri of Sri Aurobindo, which is in English, but he has raised the language to the level of mantra. There one doesn't feel that, oh, I am reading English mantra, or I am reading this language mantra. It takes you beyond the confinements of language.
But doesn't that have to do with the different levels of manifestation?
True.
The sound.
Yes.
Yeah.
It has to. So it happens, slowly it prepares the consciousness to come to that level.
Okay.
It doesn't happen suddenly. So that is why the sadhana is necessary. Alright. So maybe like we can do the chanting of Om, Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. And Om, as I said, like whenever I do it, I follow Mother's instructions. That Om is the signature of the Lord. That means everything and being in this creation has that sanction. So the presence of Om in everything and being, connecting, like getting connected with everything and being. That's the bhava one has to be carried. And Shanti is, this particular word, Shanti, is so powerful, it immediately calms down the entire consciousness. Calms down the entire, inner and outer space. Inner and outer space. So when we say Shanti, make it Sha little longer. Ti, that I. Don't say I. Shanti. The force of Visarga, it has tremendous impact when you articulate it. So I will do it once, then you can follow me. Shanti, Shanti.